My name is Carson. Welcome to Thrifty Garage, a channel where we do everyday repairs, how-tos, and reviews. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the 5 attachments I picked out for my Bobcat E35 mini excavator. This was a lot of work for me to choose these. I went through a lot of grief and aggravation making the choice. I'm going to talk about what I ended up choosing and why, and how it's worked out since then. So before we get into these attachments, let's talk about the machine and what I've got equipped on it and why. So this is a Bobcat E35 machine. We've got a backfill blade up front here, and we've got the hydraulic exchange, and that's was something that was very, very important to me, and that kind of comes into play on some of these attachments. Another thing I wanted was a hydraulic thumb. Those were mandatory on the machine for me, and we're not going to talk about those today in the video necessarily, but those are kind of some bonus equipment that I wanted in the purchase. So one of the biggest things for me was the buckets. So I knew I wanted kind of average or traditional sized bucket, and I went back and forth on what to buy between a 2 foot and a 3 foot or an 18-inch. And this 3.5 ton machine weighs about 10,000 pounds, 8,000 or 9,000 pounds, and I ultimately decided on the 24-inch bucket, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's a good in-between bucket. I'm doing a lot of research, found you could probably do a 36-inch bucket, but I think it was more for moving soil, and I do more digging, so I think that'll be a better option for me. And my next choice was the 12-inch trenching bucket. This was a must for me as well. So these two were the first two purchases I would make. 12-inch trenching bucket. I could have gone narrower. I think they sold a 9-inch, but with a hydraulic thumb, this fits in here perfectly for the 12-inch. Going any smaller, and you're kind of getting too small for the thumb. So the trenching bucket has been good. We've obviously used this the most. You can see our teeth are already well worn in. This machine has a couple hundred hours on it now. So these are my first two choices. Next up, I knew I wanted a grading bucket, so I chose the 4-foot grading bucket. And these two smaller buckets, they were in stock when I first purchased this machine, and this grading bucket took the longest to get in. I also ordered the hydraulic PowerTilt. So this PowerTilt I just thought would be great for grading, kind of a side-to-side motion, give me some extra usability and features. But I tell you what, this is probably the best attachment of these all, is this PowerTilt. It is expensive. It's about a $5,000 attachment. All these buckets are about $1,000 a piece, but the PowerTilt has been a game changer, and I'll show some clips of using that. But the biggest thing that I didn't expect to be able to use it for is when the bucket is completely curled, you're able to swing it to the left or the right, and you can pick up materials, you can dump materials, out of the side of the bucket. You can, we've used it to pick up paver blocks and move them around on a job site. Just complete and total versatility, much more than I expected, way beyond the capabilities I expected this PowerTilt to be able to offer for us. So that has been a huge game changer. And like I said, it's not a small investment, but when you're buying a $50,000 machine, you know, spending 10% more and getting a PowerTilt is awesome. They also have the Hydra-Tilt, which just doesn't go quite as far extending. You're not going to get the same capabilities I get out of this PowerTilt as you would with the Hydra-Tilt. And then the 4-foot grading bucket. I will say the 4-foot grading bucket combined with the PowerTilt it's very heavy. It's heavy on the machine. When you have it completely outstretched, you can feel all that weight on the machine, especially if you are trying to pick up soil. But if you're just grading with it, if you're just moving small amounts of material and you're kind of pushing or pulling, the weight is not as bad, but it is a heavy unit. But the 4-foot grading bucket works really nice for grading big areas. You're not quite into a full skid steer wide bucket, but it moves a good amount of material. So as I mentioned with the PowerTilt, one of the coolest things I found is you can actually scoop materials out and dump it out of the side of the bucket. So you can dump it as if it's a 2-foot bucket, but you can have much more materials. We've used the dump trailer quite a bit to pick up materials on job sites, so we're not dumping it on the street. We're able to back it in right to our job site and be able to offload right where we need it. And having that ability to drop the materials exactly where we want them has been just key. I will say, because this PowerTilt is hydraulic, it is a little bit cumbersome, and this machine's not the best at changing out your hydraulic lines. This machine is equipped with auxiliary hydraulic lines, which was also pretty important to me. You can see we've got little holes for this to be run down through to keep it protected. That all works great, but It's a lot of work to disconnect and connect up the hydraulic line. These hydraulic lines freeze up because the fluid will get locked inside this hydraulic power head, and then it won't allow fluid to go through, and so it's hard to connect and disconnect. One thing I found that helps when you're connecting attachments is if you crack one of these lines and just loosen it, that bleeds off enough pressure and fluid that'll allow you to hook up to your quick attach. So once I've got that connected up, the PowerTilt, I don't like disconnecting it, and I don't necessarily like swapping this head out and putting it on other buckets. As you can see here, we've got a pin here, so you can pin that on different buckets, which is super nice. The only disadvantage with that is because of the distance here, you know, we're adding a foot or so. That affects the thumb, so you can't really use the thumb with this. When you do use the thumb, it actually will come in contact with these bolts right here. It can't really clasp and close all the way. So usually when I have this bucket on, I'm going to be using the thumb, so that's kind of the give and take. This is my bucket I use with the thumb, this is my bucket I use for grading, and I want to be able to swing it back and forth. As you may have seen on our gravel loading dock repair video, I was able to use the hydraulic PowerTilt with a 4-foot grading bucket on the whole job. It worked super nice. I was able to pull materials out of the trailer with that. I was able to scrape it, and we were able to scrape on an angle and do the sides, and it was able to move a large amount of material, and I didn't have to get into the tooth bucket to dig down. Okay, we've kind of got one big glaring red piece right over here. That's kind of my last attachment, and I would definitely recommend this if you need the ability to reverse your bucket. So one thing with this Bobcat exchange system is it is non-reversible. You cannot reverse these buckets around, and that really you know, loses some functionality. A lot of other attachment systems have kind of 2 pins that you're able to clamp in between. The Bobcat exchange doesn't allow that. So JP Attachments has created this attachment. It's about a $1,500 attachment. Got a separate video on this, and this is a game changer if you need the ability to switch your bucket around. So what you do is, obviously you've got this front portion here that hooks on the front, and then you take this pin and pin it through here. Then that's attached to your bucket. It's all one unit, and then you can use your hydraulic exchange to hook into here, and your hydraulic exchange levers right here will pop out into these 2 holes right here. So you can swap it out. You can swap out that bucket. You can move back and forth. Unlike the hydraulic unit there, it's a lot easier to switch back and forth with this attachment. So those are kind of my 5 go-to attachments. We got the PowerTilt, we got a 4-foot grading bucket, we got a 2-foot bucket, and we've got a 12-inch bucket. And I did think a lot about getting an 18-inch bucket. I think my alternative option to this would have been probably an 18 and a 36, but I think going the 1-foot, 2-foot, 4-foot bucket worked out pretty good. We've got a few kind of gaps in between we can fill in the future, but honestly I'm pretty happy. If I were to choose another bucket, it would probably be a 36-inch bucket, and I also considered getting a smaller smooth bucket, but honestly I think this is a pretty good setup. I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, I went back and forth, debated a lot with myself on what I should buy, and I don't know if I would have it any other way. As far as future attachments, things I'm looking for, I think probably the next step down from this 12-inch digging bucket would be a ripper, which is just a very narrow ripper attachment. I think that would probably be my next go-to attachment, and I don't know, I'm pretty well set with what I've got here. This is a pretty good full inventory